You know, we're the flagship program in this state, right? And
a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit.
Bullshit is right. Man, oh man, guys, welcome back to episode 52 of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. We're here Thursday, February 29th, leap day on a leap year 2024, 10:30 p.m. to talk some Texas sports. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Share this content with your friends, and also go check out some of the other content we have on our channel. We just recorded an NFL mock draft tonight on our main feed, so check out that, check out Dithole, and check out our Patreon. But with all that being said, we're not going to waste much time tonight here on episode 52. Let me introduce my fellow co-hosts on the Raw Prospect podcast here on Dithole and over on Patreon, but also fellow Texas football, Texas basketball, and developing Texas baseball fanatic, Emmy Nixon. What's up, man?
Nothing much. I'm excited to get back into it tonight, man. The Texas basketball team, man, aren't they just a roller coaster of emotions? I mean, this Texas Tech game, we'll get into all that in a little bit, but my gosh, just insanity. There's no other way to describe it. But man, I'm excited to get into all of it.
Let's jump right into this. Because one of the conversations I want to have is, has Texas done enough to basically solidify itself as a team that's going to get an at-large bid here in about a little under 2.5 weeks when we come to Selection Sunday? We'll talk about that, but in order to get to that point, we need to talk about this Texas Tech game that happened on Tuesday night in Lubbock. Texas's last time, possibly forever, going to Lubbock to play a basketball game. And should be the last time for a variety of reasons, which we will talk about in this recap of this game. I watched this game live, and this was, first of all, let's just say this. This was a monumental win for Texas's resume. It's another quad one win. It adds to their resume, and they now have another road win in the Big 12. They have a set of road wins and a road resume in Big 12 play that not many other teams can say that they have. So we'll talk about that. But before we get to their resume, which I'll throw up on screen when we get to that, your initial takeaways, your initial thoughts from the game in Lubbock on Tuesday night.
Well, I thought, for one, the team just really locked in on the defensive end as a whole. I think the focus was there defensively for all 40 minutes, and it seems like this team with Dessou and Shedrick being their kind of front court rotation, I guess. I think they found their blueprint defensively. They wanted run you off the 3-point line, and they wanted to force you into tough mid-range shots. And that's obviously a common, defensive tactic in today's basketball landscape, obviously with analytics and all those types of things. But I just think Texas, with the lack of size in the backcourt, having the interior defense and ability to make rotations at a high level is just going to be essential.
The number one thing that stands out, and you hit on it from this game, and I'll get to that in a minute, is the perimeter defense, the defensive effort as a whole, playing collectively as a defense, the ball pressure, and the intensity on that end of the floor. I would venture to say that first half especially, but the game pretty much as a whole, from start to finish, that was Texas's best defensive performance in conference play since the firing of Chris Beard. It was pretty clear from the start of the game to basically the finish, where it got a little closer than I think this game probably was played for most of it, as Tech cut it down to like a 12-point margin of victory at the very end with a couple made shots. This was an ass kicking on the defensive end of the floor by Texas. They absolutely got after it. They were guarding, they were pressuring the ball all the way up the floor. Phenomenal help side defense on multiple drives to the basket by Pop Isaacs, the outstanding point guard for Texas Tech. In the first half, Shedrick, who's getting more playing time as now he's healthy, and that needs to sustain for Texas. Dylan Dessou and Dylan Mitchell combined for 4 blocks in the first half alone. Their energy and effort was outstanding. Now, Texas Tech was missing their best front court player in Warren Washington, and that was big. Texas caught a break there, but Texas took advantage of that, and they had to. I think the energy and effort on the defensive end of the floor to block shots, run Texas Tech off the three-point line, guard the three-pointer, and not allow them to have anything easy in the paint, which has been a problem for Texas this year. I mean, they went down to Kansas last weekend and got their asses kicked to a Kansas team that's now going to be without Kevin McCullough possibly for the rest of this year, which would be huge. But got their asses whipped, especially on the interior. Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams had a huge game last Saturday, and they got their asses kicked. So not only was this a great response, to follow that up with a road win in Lubbock, which is huge because coming into this game, Texas Tech had only lost one home game all year. Like, it's one of the better home court advantages in college basketball. You obviously, if you're a Texas fan that cares anything about Texas basketball, you remember the first time that Texas went into Lubbock when Chris Beard was hired. You remember that game. They were throwing stuff at the Texas buses. That was a ridiculous environment that day.
Yeah.
It was pretty much the same. And Texas took the crowd out of it for most of this game because of their defense. So that's the first thing that obviously stands out. For me, it was probably their best all-around defensive performance in Big 12 play since Chris Beard was the coach. They were locked in on that end of the floor for pretty much the entire game. Now, the next thing that I think might be a huge development for Texas, or could be if it continues, was the bench. The bench play in this game was outstanding. They inserted Ithiel Horton, or IT Horton, back into the starting lineup. That was an adjustment that they made after getting their asses kicked at Houston and at Kansas for the past 2 weekends. By doing that, you had Kendall Weaver come off the bench. You also had Brock Cunningham come off the bench. And you had Caden Shedrick coming off the bench. The bench in this game combined for 34 points. 34 points. That's big. That's a big contribution from the bench. They totally outplayed the Texas Tech bench. You had 15 from Kendall Weaver, which is outstanding. 10 from Caden Shedrick. When he got into the game for his first 4 to 6 minute run, he had some very nice post moves on the inside against Like, he took advantage on the interior with the void that Warren Washington left. He took advantage of that. And I love to see that aggressiveness on the offensive end from Caden Shedrick, but also he was playing hard defensively. And then obviously Brock Cunningham, who I think has been kind of a minus player, especially on offense for most of this year, had one of his better games offensively. And his energy and effort on the offensive rebounding, on the offensive glass for Texas was outstanding in this game. So the bench and then the rebounding was better. They got after it on the boards, 13 offensive rebounds. They out-rebounded Tech 44-30. That will win you a lot of ball games doing that in the Big 12 conference. Didn't allow for a lot of second chance opportunities. And then obviously for Texas to win this year, it's had to have gone through Max Abmas and Dylan Dessou. And both those guys played well this game. And when both those guys play well, Texas has a chance to beat anybody, pretty much. Yeah. Abmas, who was in the worst slump of his career, definitively, for the past 3 games, spanning the loss to Houston 2 weekends ago, the win over K-State last week at home, which is kind of more of a defensive slugfest, and then the ass kicking in Fog Allen this past weekend. He was not good offensively in any of those games. I'm surprised Texas won the K-State game with the way that he was shooting and the drought that he was in. Just couldn't seem to buy a bucket. And this is a guy that scored over 3,000 points in his college career. Like, this guy has been a bucket in his college career, and he had the worst slump of his career. But he shot his way out of it, was excellent in this game. I thought he took better care of the ball too. And then Dylan Dessou, I mean, he's just really good.
Yeah.
He had 21 and 6 in this game. So I think the combination of Abmas and Dessou playing well, kicking Tech's ass on the boards, especially on the offensive glass, and getting those second chance opportunities and getting 34 points from your bench, all of that put together with the energy and effort that they played with gives you a good chance to win any game. And this was a game Texas needed to win on the road.
Yeah, you could tell the intensity was just higher in this game. One thing I want to add on to your points there was also just the balance between front court and back court scoring, I think was as good as it's been all season long. I think that's been a little bit of an issue for Texas in terms of, having to rely on Max Abmas quite a bit in terms of creation. And now, with Shedrick, Mitchell, those guys being able to deliver some scoring punch on the inside, I think there's reason to believe there's this is going to move in the right direction here.
Yeah. Let's talk about Kendall Weaver for a little bit. We've talked a lot about him some on this show, but you just want to talk about just like maniacal energy, night in, night out. You want to talk about young. You want to talk about energy and effort. You want to talk about an athletic freak of nature for his size, the way that he gets up on some of those rebounds. It's kind of like a smaller guard. The level of grit and energy that just, I think, spreads to the other members of this Texas basketball team. You could feel it spread to Caden Shedrick. You could feel it spread in the way that Brock Cunningham competed. Of course, he has some history with Texas Tech, and that probably upped the ante a little bit. But you could just feel the way that Kendall Weaver competes night in, night out. It's contagious. And when Dessou and Abmas are going like that, and Kendall Weaver comes off the bench, or whether he's in the starting lineup, it does wonders for this Texas team, especially on the defensive end of the floor. At one point in the first half, Kendall Weaver went on a 5-0 run by himself from just hustle plays. where he posted back-to-back rebounds. He finished the first half himself with 9 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. He was doing everything. And he's been kind of the unsung hero at times for this Texas basketball team. So I thought I'd bring him up, give him a lot of credit for the way that he competed. Because in the Big 12, with a lot of these teams have bigger, physical, stronger, faster, athletic NBA kind of guard play. And it can be hard, especially for a guy like Kendall Weaver coming from, where did he come from? UTEP?
Yeah, I
Did I
believe
have
so.
that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean, it can be hard to adjust to that. And I think he's adjusted just about as well as anybody. So give him credit. We need more of that. And I think if you're Rodney Terry, after seeing the way this game went, don't mess with this. Keep this the way that it is for Saturday against Oklahoma State. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Let's bring Kendall Weaver off the bench. IT Horton is fine in the starting lineup. In fact, I think he brings a little more size and physicality at the very least to the starting lineup. And that can be nice, especially when you're matching up against teams like Baylor or Houston. And he can make shots. I mean, he's capable. You at least have to think about getting out to contest. That's what he's actually made a career off of at the college level up until this year. He obviously hasn't shot it as well this year at Texas for whatever reason, but he's totally capable of knocking down a shot. And I think he's played better over the past couple of games. So keep him in the starting lineup. Let Kendall Weaver be the Energizer Bunny off the bench. He played fantastic on Tuesday night, and he was a big reason why they were able to win. But I think now what we'll do is let's throw up, and this was a tweet that I made yesterday in the aftermath of the win. And this was actually a thread, so you can go read what I thought were the biggest keys for Texas winning this game. But I went on to the net rankings, and I went into Ken Palmer, and I just basically threw together Texas's NCAA tournament profile after their win in Lubbock on Tuesday night. They're 18-10 overall. They're now 7-8 in conference play. Now, the remaining schedule is interesting because you see at the bottom, they get Oklahoma State at home on Saturday. They're one of the few teams in the Big 12 that isn't going to make the tournament. They just weren't very good this year. You have to win that game. Then you get Baylor on a quick turnaround on the road. It'll be another quad one opportunity. I don't mention it here, but you get Baylor on the road Monday night. And they're a team you've already beat this year. So you've shown that you can beat them. They're not great defensively. They're awesome offensively, but that's another opportunity for Texas to just further push themselves, not only further away from the bubble, but get themselves up to maybe even a 7 seed if they can. And then you play Oklahoma, who you've already beat at home to close the season. What will be, I guess, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I think if Texas, with this resume, 7-8 in Big 12 play, number 28 on KenPom, which is plenty good to make the tournament, number 33 in the net, which is a good net ranking, plenty good to make the tournament. 5 quad one wins now, 7 total wins between quad one and quad two. 7-9 is totally respectable against higher level competition. And then those road wins that they have, as I mentioned, I mean,
Yeah.
double-digit road wins over Oklahoma, who's going to be a tournament team most likely. TCU, who's kind of more of a bubble team right now, but we'll probably see them in the tournament. And then Texas Tech, who we're definitely going to see in the tournament. Not only did you win those games, you fucking killed those teams. I think this resume is better than some people are giving it credit for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, 5 quad one wins is top tier. There's no question about it. And I think you have to look at what they're doing in the Big 12 and just them being 500, you're hanging around 500. You got to see that as a really amazing achievement, honestly. Like, this conference is fucking brutal. And I think there's been obviously inconsistency there, sure, but man, as you said, just from an eye test standpoint, they pass the test, especially when they're playing like how they did against Texas Tech, and then just the resume speaks for itself. That at that point, I think if you really want to lock in, like maybe being in consideration for a 5 seed or something like that, then you want to see them go out into the Big 12 tournament and do well and win a few games there, but outside of that, I think you feel pretty good about them being solidly in the tournament.
I do too. You just cannot lose the game on Saturday to Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Now, I even think there's going to be a team probably with the strength of this league that's going to get in at 7-11 in conference play. I just think that is going to happen. We've seen it before. There is precedent for that. However, you can't take another, what would I think be quad 3 loss. And Texas already has one of those on their resume.
Right.
It's not hurting them as much as maybe some other bubble teams like Wake Forest, but because they have the 5 quad 1 wins and they have 7 wins in quads 1 and quad 2. But you can't take another one of those. You have to beat Oklahoma State, take care of business there. If you go 2-1 in this 3-game stretch and you get to 9-9 and 500 in the conference, which is a conversation we actually had, I guess, coming into conference play or before the season even started, I think one of my buy or sells was Texas will struggle to make it to 500 or something along those lines in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And I can't necessarily remember what we said, but it has kind of come to fruition that it's hard to even get to 500 in this league. Yeah. And this is a talented team. I mean, this team isn't void of talent, as we know. So I think you beat Oklahoma State, you're pretty much a sure thing. If you lose to Oklahoma State at home, though, already having, a couple home losses that are kind of have put you in this spot to begin with as kind of like a fringe bubble team for most of the season. Like that bad loss to UCF where you blew the lead in the second half. You can't have another one of those. You got to take care of that game. If you do that, whatever you do in the last 2, I don't think matters all that much. But I think beating Oklahoma State probably solidifies your spot. At the very least, you'll be playing in Dayton in the first 4. At the very worst, I think, if you win that game. If you go 2-1, though, and you get yourself back to 500 in the league going into the Big 12 tournament, you're a lock. And not only are you a lock, but say it's the 2-1 where you beat Baylor too, and you add another quad 1 win to this resume. Yeah, I mean, you could even be like a 7 or 8 seed at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I think we squeezed the juice out of that conversation. So we'll talk more Texas basketball next week. So let me stop sharing. Anything else on the Texas basketball team? Is there a Rodney Terry discussion you want to have or anything else?
Well, you got to give Rodney Terry credit, I think. It seems like every time this Texas team has their back up against the wall or they face adversity, with how they played against Kansas, obviously, they come back with a vengeance. I think I would even compare Rodney Terry to Mike Tomlin in a sense for when their team, for when his team just is, kind of on the ropes in terms of just kind of being mediocre. Like they pick it up and they've really turned things around here.
Yeah, what I would say is about Rodney Terry, just speaking in general, not to you particularly, but just to Texas fans that are out there, is you got to be patient.
Yeah.
Got to be more patient with Rodney Terry, especially in this league. Like, wait to see how this season ends up. Wait for finality for this first full season under Rodney Terry. Wait to see how the season ends. Then it's fair to make some judgments, but you got to stop with the Rodney Terry needs to go after this year. Texas is not going to fire Rodney Terry at this point. It's just not going to happen unless things went extremely south with this team. That was not going to be on the table. They're going to give him another year, especially with the recruiting class that's coming in that I think he'll be able to hold on to with Trey Johnson and the other guys. I mean, there are some high-level guys in that recruiting class. We'll talk about that more a little later on, like closer to the offseason. But, yeah, I think give Rodney Terry time. Just be patient. That's all I would say on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And look, the last thing I'll say is, do I fully trust? If you're asking me if I fully trust this Texas basketball team, come tournament time, the answer is no, I don't. But I will say this: if Max Abmas and Dylan Dessou play to a level like they did against Texas Tech and in a couple other games this season, if they play good for 2 games for a weekend, Texas could find themselves back in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Because when they play well, when those 2 guys play well, this team, as I mentioned earlier, can beat anybody. If they were in an 8-9 game and they were to play a 1 seed in their second round matchup, depending on who that is, of course, if those 2 guys are on, like, they can beat a 1 seed. It depends on who it is, but like, I don't think they're beating UConn, but I mean, it's possible. So just watch out. I mean, I'm probably not gonna pick it. I'm not betting money on it. I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't touch it with, a 1,000-foot pole, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Texas baseball. The baseball team is off to a 6-1 start. So the first weekend they took 2 out of 3 from San Diego. Then they beat down on Houston Christian, a game in which they scored 20 runs, 20-3. Pitching was fantastic. Then they went on to sweep Cal Poly this past weekend, where they gave up 0 runs as a team.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fantastic. And then on Tuesday, they beat St. John's, score 15-4. A St. John's team that beat Florida in the opening weekend. And coming up this weekend, Texas will compete in the Astros Foundation Classic they've been in this event for, I think, the past couple years. But the competition's going to ramp up this weekend. Texas is going to play a game against LSU tomorrow night. Then Saturday afternoon, they're going to take on Texas State, who's generally considered to be one of the better mid-majors in college baseball. And then Sunday, they're going to take on Vanderbilt, who's another top 15 caliber of team. But before we get into that, I want your takeaways so far from the first 8 games. What are the things at the top of your mind? What are your main takeaways? And what are you looking to see this weekend against some better competition?
Well, number one, the pitching has been fantastic. Over in the overall, big picture viewpoint, I just think having LBJ, give an 8 inning shutty, and no matter what the opponent is, seeing him that comfortable on the mound, dealing the way he was this early in the year is such a good sign. And then the other part is your newcomers are shining here early on as well. I think Bill Gasparino has been a godsend in the 9 spot, flipping the lineup, and I think can't remember his name, but the acquisition from Duke has been a solid contributor as well. So um, I really like this team, man. I think it's early days, but in terms of Big 12 play, I think there's reason to have high expectations. 100%. Like this is, go out and compete for a Big 12 title or bust.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of it there. The pitching is obviously great. LBJ is what we thought he was. Now, tomorrow against LSU will be a very, very intriguing start. And it doesn't get any easier next weekend when they go to Lubbock. But he is that guy. I think he's one of the top 5 or 6 pitchers in the country when he's got his best stuff, which he did against Cal Poly. And he has. What did he go? 8 innings shutout?
Yeah, 8 inning shutout.
I think Charlie Hurley's going to have a really solid season. Cody Howard stepped into the Sunday role while Turner Witt kind of works his way back in the bullpen. He actually closed out the game on Tuesday night against St. John's with a 1-2-3 inning. Pretty low stress, low leverage spot. The game wasn't on the line or anything, but it was good to see him look good. Kind of struggled in his first start a couple weekends back. But I think if you get Tanner Witt back, this rotation all of a sudden looks very, very good to elite. Like it's really good. I think the bullpen is better than I thought it was going to be already. Some of the guys that have been contributing in the bullpen have really kind of surprised me. Luke Harrison's working his way back from an injury, but he's had good outings. Max Grubbs has been really solid so far. David Shaw's been really solid so far. Andre Duplantier has been good so far. Guys are coming in and they're putting out fires. And the bullpen looks good. If we can get this version of the Texas bullpen going into conference play, we'll have a really good chance in the conference. And then in the lineup, I mean, you mentioned it, like Will Gasparino, you see why he could have gone into the draft. Like he has those kind of tools. What he did on Tuesday night against St. John's, I think he went 3 for 3 and drove in 3 or 4 runs. Like he's really good. Great bat to have at the bottom of your lineup. But what really stands out is the top of the lineup to me. I mean, whether it's Peyton Powell, whether it's Jared Thomas leading off, or whether it's Jalen Flores. Watch out for Jalen Flores. He has 2 grand slams already this year. One came Tuesday night against St. John's to blow that game open. Another, I think, came the weekend before, or I think it might have been Houston Christian. I can't remember. But he's got 2 grand slams to open up this season. 3, a lot of that is good fortune, like getting the guys on base in front of you. Like you have to be set up for that situation. But when he's had that situation, he's capitalized on it. And then, I mean, Jared Thomas leading the Big 12 in batting average is a 561. Peyton Powell leading the Big 12 in RBIs with 18 RBIs to this point. Like, it's just that top three, I think, is going to be dangerous all season long.
Yeah.
And when you have the guy that can turn the lineup over, when you have lethal guys at the top of your lineup, 1 through 3, 1 through 4, still waiting for Porter Brown to get it going here a little bit, but I think he will eventually. He's a guy that could run into a home run at any minute. And then you have guys like Jack O'Dowd who are contributing. Max Bailu, who's a younger guy, also contributing. Tommy Farmer really hasn't even gotten into the mix yet. This Texas offense, I think, will be a steady, really, really good offense all season long. Biggest question coming into this year were Tanner Witt in the bullpen. And, I mean, so far, although against some lesser competition, it's worked out very, very well. But
Yeah.
I want to see it. I want to see it this weekend against some stiffer competition. So in terms of LSU, in terms of Texas State, in terms of Vanderbilt, what will you be watching for this weekend? What do you want to see for, like, no matter what happens this weekend, no matter Texas wins 2 out of 3, they lose 2 out of 3, they sweep the series. I mean, hell, that'd be awesome. But whatever happens this weekend, what can you see from this Texas baseball team that will give you even more confidence going forward? Like, what is it that you want to see?
Well, for one, I want to see the bullpen really step up and perform against 3 quality opponents in a row, where inevitably we will be leaning on them here at some point in this 3-game stretch. Just 3 games in a row where it's gonna be a dogfight. Like we know how college baseball is, where it's like you got 12 to 11 like runs in a game, like high scoring affairs all over the place. But in order to win a game like that, you got to go out in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning and close it out, and be able to have guys who you can trust. And this is a moment where you can build that trust in the bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick note for those of you who are interested in viewing maybe one or maybe all the games this weekend. You have viewing options. I guess more so for people in the Houston area, you can view the game on AT&T Sportsnet. But for those of you who don't have access to that, you can stream it on Astros.com for free. And not just the Texas games, like the other games that are going on as well. You can stream those if you're interested in seeing Vanderbilt take on Texas State tomorrow. As kind of like a scouting for the next couple of days. You can see that. You can go to the Astros YouTube channel and stream the games there, or they will be available on all Astros social media platforms. So Instagram, I believe, X or Twitter, wherever if you're interested, maybe not watching the whole game, but seeing some Texas baseball, you can go watch it there.
Yeah.
I think for me, what do I want to see? Well, of course, I want to see tomorrow's matchup with Luke Holsom as a starter for LSU, who hasn't given up a run yet this year, and then LeBaron Johnson Jr., who's an absolute stud. I want to see how Charlie Hurley performs in that Saturday game against Texas State. And then, of course, I want to see Cody Howard, who's coming off a good start, how he performs on Sunday. I want to see if Tanner Witt gets time out of the bullpen. Does he get to build more confidence against some stiffer competition? Obviously, the bullpen is always, I think, throughout the season, going to be a point of emphasis. But I think the biggest thing is good at bats. Good at bats against really high-level pitching that you're going to be facing. Working good counts, getting into good hitters counts, getting yourself on base, being patient, not expanding the zone, especially for those top guys. Like, great. You did what you had to do. You pounded Houston Christian. You looked really good against Cal Poly. You looked good against San Diego. You've gotten off to a good start. Peyton Powell's off to a fantastic start at the plate. Same thing with Jared Thomas. Same thing with Jalen Flores. But if you go into this weekend and you strike out 3 times, go say 1 for 9 between those 3 guys, there are going to be questions about your performance up until this point. So work good counts, get on base, and I want to see more timely hitting from this Texas team. Obviously, they've put up a lot of runs so far, but there have been games so far this season where they leave too many men on base. There are too many opportunities, especially early on in games, where they're letting runs slip through their grasp of their fingertips. I think whoever it is, work counts, drive the ball the other way. You don't have to hit a home run every time. Get guys in. Every run is going to be super at a premium in these high-level games against top 10 level teams, especially LSU and Vanderbilt. But even against a team like Texas State, who's a really good program. So I think that's probably what I'm watching for going into the series. I think we'll do something similar to this moving forward on our dit holes because the schedule really does now get interesting. They play this set of 3 games this weekend. Then Tuesday for a midweek game, they're hosting A&M. A&M is ranked 7 in the country. And then they'll follow that up by going to Texas Tech for their first Big 12 series of the season. Texas Tech is a top 25 team. So Texas is kind of doing their farewell tour and just getting rid of all affiliation with Lubbock, Texas, and Texas Tech officially, which I think will be excellent. And look, some people are going to miss the rivalry. I'm not.
No.
Those guys have been a pain in the ass for too long. Don't like their fans. In fact, we didn't even talk about the flagrant 2 on Brock Cunningham and the whole situation with their fans throwing debris on the court. The fan getting carried out and arrested at the basketball game on Tuesday night. It's just, I mean, I'm sure you have your own thoughts on it. Why not you? I mean, what do you? You're not going to miss any of this, will you?
People talk about storming the court as some, atrocity of humankind, but that type of, behavior as fans, dude, like it's just baffling to see, honestly. Like I don't even see any pluses to that. Just like when you're going to a basketball game, just enjoy the game. Like, you're taking away from everybody's experience by doing dumb shit like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we don't really the people trying to defend Brock Cunningham, I understand it, but that wasn't a basketball play.
Yeah, no.
He's obviously trying to, like, in his mind, he was going for the basketball. But he clearly put his shoulder into the Texas Tech player who was going for the basketball and knocked him into the scorer's table.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a linebacker kind of play. And so that was a flagrant 2. He deserved to get ejected, and he played well up until that point. But, like, I mean, I understand trying to defend him, but that was a flagrant 2 foul. Like, Texas fans, get over it. That was a hard foul. But the behavior that ensued after that from the Texas Tech faithful, who I've kind of lost all respect for at this point, was just unacceptable. Throwing stuff at the court, targeting at the Texas bench. Like, Rodney Terry had to move the guys to like center court. And he thought about taking him back into the locker room. And at that point, I mean, if it gets to that point, and obviously I think Grant McCaslin did a fantastic job getting on the mic and telling him to stop, cut it out.
Yeah.
But it is, I'm just happy Texas will probably never consider going back there again. I do think they're still going to probably play teams in the state of Texas, but they're not going to Lubbock again. Forget that. Football, basketball, baseball, whatever it may be, I don't think they're going back to Lubbock. Why would you put yourself through that if you're Texas?
Yeah, I mean, Lubbock just as a town fucking sucks anyway. Let alone the fact that Texas Tech just so happens to be there. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
It's sorry if you're watching this and you go to Texas Tech. Look, there are probably I applied to the school. I got into the school. There are good things about the school, but your fans are trash, and we don't like you as a competitor. As a the sports programs it's just not working out.
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect time for the teams to break up and Texas to move on to probably brighter pastures in the SEC. Now, that being said, Texas, you're going to have to deal with some pretty trashy fan bases in the SEC. But at least it's, you know what you're getting yourself into. Like, at least some of those teams will be on equal footing with you. And so I think it is what it is. Last thing, you brought up the court storming stuff. And I thought it's been a hot topic lately.
Yeah.
We can kind of close the show out with this. Just your general thoughts on, we saw what happened with Philip Kowski at the Duke game. Your thoughts on it overall?
You know, I personally don't hate court storming. I don't think it's a huge deal, but the huge but to that is player safety. Like that has to be a priority. And with people storming on the court, there's always going to be the that one crazed fan that decides to maybe get physical with a player, which is you just can't allow that to happen. So I think in those scenarios, like if you can delay it to where you can allow the road or just somehow escort the road fans or rather road team out of the stadium, then I think that has to be what's done, because I think fans are going to continue to storm the court regardless. I think I don't think it's tradition, but it's just common practice. If you have a big win against a highly touted opponent, the most common thing is to storm the court.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. I think I have a couple thoughts on this. Number one, I was never in the camp, even before this Philip Kowski incident happened, or even the Caitlin Clark incident from a couple weeks back happened.
Yeah.
I was never in the camp that court storming needed to be banned. I think court storming is part of what makes the college game great.
Yeah.
It's part of the overall culture of college sports. Not only on the basketball side, but football side too. I don't know if we see it as much in college baseball, but it's ingrained into the culture of the sport. And so I was never in the camp of necessarily banning it. I still think it's a great thing. But I do think there are certain situations it's better for than others. Like, I mean, if you beat a team that's ranked 20th in the poll, do you really need to storm the court for that?
No.
I think it needs to be like for special situations where you beat the cream of the crop. You beat the number one team in the country. You beat a top 5 team in the country. You do something that your program has never done before. Sure. do that. But I do agree with you. Like, I think the easiest solution, although it might not be perfect, is to set a timer. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute. Let the team get off the court, give them the opportunity to shake hands, whatever they need to do, get off the court, and then you can storm the court and celebrate.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best solution. But to your point, like, this is obviously something needs to be done to protect the player, to protect the college athlete. You don't want these college students who probably been drinking and are lathered up, running into these college athletes and potentially hurting somebody, like they almost hurt Philip Kowski. But there's another side to that too that I've been thinking about is what happens the first time that one of these fans, one of these run-of-the-mill college students, 5'8", 170-pound college student, runs into a physical specimen like Zach Edey, or that's not a great example, but like runs into a physical specimen, say like
Kevin McCullough.
And I'm not saying this would happen, but what happens if in a situation like that, the college player then responds by taking a swing at the fan? That's where it gets dangerous, and that's where lawsuits could come into play. That's where liability comes into play.
Yeah.
Like, you can't rule it out because these are college athletes competing at the highest level of their particular sport. And right after the game, they're probably still in the heat of the moment. They're in the heat of the game. They just lost the game, especially if it's a road player, because this obviously wouldn't be a problem with the home team.
High on adrenaline.
If you do something that you're not supposed to do, they could absolutely end up taking a swing at the fan. And that's where it gets dangerous. It's not only protecting the players, in my opinion, it's about protecting the fans too, themselves.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how if I run into Zach Edey, or I don't know why I keep using Zach Edey as an example, but like if I were to run into, say, the guy for Houston, Jamal Shed, like that guy's probably no taller than I am, but he is,
He's a tank.
He's a specimen, yeah. And that guy could beat me up.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do something wrong, or I touch him the wrong way, or I bump him, he takes a swing at me, that's where it gets dangerous. Yeah. I mean, obviously it is potentially for both guys. I could hurt him, he could hurt me. But that's where something needs to be done. But for the people who are in the court storming needs to be banned contention, I respectfully disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I can see that you're kind of tired. I am too. So we'll get out of here. But we were originally planning actually to do something more than this, but we kind of improvised on the fly, and this was a good dit hole. Make sure you go check out though our Longhorn, what was it? Our Longhorn athlete draft from a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
Where we did. Yeah, that was a good one. Go check that out. Go check out all of our other content coming up on Dit Hole. We're going to be getting into, obviously, a lot of the Texas draftable prospects that are working at the combine this week. We're also going to be getting into some spring football discussion as well, as we're we're less than 3 weeks out from spring practice beginning. So I'm going to talk to Emmy probably this weekend about some of the stuff that we're going to do. And then recruiting is going to ramp back up. So we'll have recruiting content. We'll have Texas basketball and March Madness content, and then more Texas baseball centered content. So lots to talk about on this channel. But also go check out our other episodes. As I mentioned at the end of our mock draft, baseball content is coming as we move into March. That'll start this upcoming week. And then there's so much more. The NBA playoff push is on. We did a fantastic NBA episode. What was it, last week?
Yep.
Where we talked about, we did our tiers, and we'll be expanding upon that here in the near future. So go check that out and all of our other content. Patreon. There's going to be some F1 content on there. We always do a gut check once a month, twice a month. Go check that out as well. So with all that being said, have a great night. Happy leap year, leap day. Good win for Texas. Hopefully we see good performance both from the basketball team and the baseball team this weekend. So hook 'em horns, and we'll see you soon for another episode of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Peace out. Hook 'em.
Peace out.